And hi everybody, it's Kurt from the Pack Breakers and Vaping Saved My Life. And I'm here with a very special guest, Dr. Rohan Sequeira from India. Hello,
Yep.
Doc. How you doing?
Hi, Kurt. Doing well.
So, we bumped into you at Good Cop.
Yes.
Good to see you again. The
Likewise.
first time we met was at Cop 1, Good Cop 1.
In Panama.
How's it been going?
You mean with regard to THR or just
Yes, THR.
THR is going downhill.
Going downhill.
Yeah, especially in Asia.
Yeah, in Asia.
That's the big problem.
Yeah, I mean, you got to practice in India and in Portugal, I believe. So, I mean, in India it's obviously completely banned.
Yep.
And in Portugal, the taxes are through the roof.
Absolutely through the roof. It just makes it unaffordable for many people.
And so, why are you here?
That's a very good question. A lot of people ask me, what are you doing here? Why don't you do something better with your time? One of the things that we see as doctors is we took a vow to make things better for our patients. In fact, when you become a doctor, you have to take the...
Well, let's stop here. You are a medical doctor.
Yes, I am. I'm a subspecialty. It's called cardioendocrinology.
Okay.
So I work with hearts and with hormones. Both are interrelated. Like,
Yes.
for example, diabetes, thyroid, cholesterol issues, heart disease, and all the the whole thing along with it. And when you
So when Dr. Rohan looks at me, he just sees problems.
not really, we like to see the good in everybody. So the problem that's happening is that when you take the Hippocratic oath to become a doctor, one of the biggest statements before you become a doctor is, and I will do no harm to my patients. It's part of the Hippocratic oath.
Yeah.
And when you look at tobacco-related diseases, the WHO and all the international associations, they define smoking-related problems as the following: the single most modifiable risk factor for cardiac and endocrinological diseases. Now, the word important over here is modifiable. That means we have an opportunity to modify it,
To change it.
to change it.
Yeah.
Now, diabetes is something you might be getting it because of your genetics, your cholesterol issues, and people who have a higher chance of getting heart attacks could also be genetic. And of course, your lifestyle does play a role in it. But a lot of these conditions, what we call NCD, non-communicable diseases,
Yep.
you probably cannot modify the fact that you're going to get diabetes. You cannot modify the fact that you might get heart attack. But when you look at one of the major risk factors for amplifying these healthcare problems is tobacco. That's where I saw the opportunity, and I said maybe I can extend, or go beyond my scope of work and see if I can address it right at the beginning, then wait for it at the end.
It's almost like a prevention rather
It
than
is.
a cure.
It is.
So, I mean, and that's particularly important, but in the subcontinent of India, is that there's such a high prevalence of these non-communicable diseases as a result of not just smoking, but very dangerous oral tobacco.
Oh, that is, one of the biggest problems that we have. If you look at the Asian continent, and in particular, if you concentrate on South Asia, that's India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and to an extent Nepal, they account for 80% of the oral cancers all over the world,
Sure.
because that is where the maximum amount of oral tobacco or smokeless tobacco is chewed.
Yeah.
And the sad part is that it affects the poorest of the poor, because it's the farmer, it's the daily manual laborer, it's people who cannot afford cigarettes, and they cannot afford the expensive items that we normally use in the West.
Yeah.
They just take a small piece of tobacco, roll it with lime, put it in their mouth, and then that's how they get their fix.
So now, correct me if I'm wrong, India's banned vapes to such a degree that you can't even research the product.
Right.
Does that extend to things like snus and nicotine pouches as well?
It's a complete ban.
Complete ban.
Yeah, it's a blanket ban on everything. See, I do understand where they're coming from. There's a point of view which I agree with them, not with regards to the ban, but the problem is when you have to handle a population which is 1.4 billion,
Yes.
implementation becomes a very big issue, right?
Okay.
But getting a blanket ban is not the answer, and I always try to urge them to reconsider. I do understand, because they're concerned about the youth, they're concerned about the gateway, that young people will get addicted to nicotine more and more. But just like you go to an alcohol store in India, you can't just go and buy alcohol,
No, of course not.
because there is a rate control step. I mean, the guy selling alcohol is going to probably ask you for your ID. So my proposal for the solution
How
was
common is alcohol stores in India?
they're like at every corner.
But then isn't that, I mean, it's just another step, another product within that, in that.
It is.
So
It
isn't
is.
that implementation wouldn't be easier in that
It
respect?
becomes very easy because you can actually have these products sold in alcohol shops, or you can have them sold in pharmacies, not as a prescription drug, but as an over-the-counter. So you have to have a line of control where somebody will check you for your ID. For example, nicotine chewing gums are available in all the pharmacies.
Yes, but it's a pharmacy.
It's a pharmacy product,
Yeah.
but it's sold as over-the-counter.
Okay.
The 4 milligram has to be given on prescription. The chewing gum,
Really?
yeah, the 4 milligram is on prescription only, but the 2 milligram is available as an OTC. Anyone can just walk up to the pharmacy and buy the 2 milligram.
And an age restriction on that?
There is an age restriction, obviously,
Okay.
but that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. The pharmacist is in a position to control that.
But then you go to the alcohol shop or the shop that sells alcohol, and they already got processes and procedures in place to say check ID.
They
so
do.
it would make
They-
no-
they do.
so wouldn't okay. So I'm correct. Am I correct in stating that the Indian government has a stake in the tobacco industry?
Yes, there is. The ITC, or the Indian Tobacco Company, there is a significant stake of the Indian government in that, which makes it all the more easier for them to move to harm-reduced products.
Well, would it? Because if they're not producing a harm-reduced product, then they're only
But
producing
that gives
tobacco.
them an opportunity.
But do they want that opportunity?
That is a different question.
Okay.
But
Yeah, and that's that's the concern that I raise, is that it adds that suspicion.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't prove. The reason why they ban these products is why, and there's this dotted line to say because they invested in this tobacco.
But if you look at it from today's point of view, most of the companies which are manufacturing tobacco all over the world, right, they also have a line of THR products.
The
And
multinationals
They do.
but I know the local producers don't, though.
There are a few local producers which are doing it right now, and
Okay.
you can get them in certain areas, but there's no regulation for it as of
Yeah.
yet, and that's the reason why I'm not. See, I can understand. I can completely understand the point of view of the government when it comes to preventing youth from getting addicted to a new substance. I would buy into that because I'm a doctor. I don't want somebody to just get into a new kind of addiction. What you say, we want to, and that's something which is common among all THR advocates, is that we do not want people to get addicted. Rather, we want people who are already addicted to find a safer alternative.
So here's an interesting question, Doc. What is the smoking prevalence or the tobacco prevalence in India?
It's about 28 to 30%.
Has that reduced
No.
over time?
No.
But there's significant deaths related to it.
There's significant deaths.
So that would mean that young people are still using the tobacco products.
There is, in the last GATS survey that was done, which was a few years ago, they showed that a very significant population group of youth that's between the age of 15 to 18 are also using a lot of tobacco, both cigarettes and smokeless products.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's more prevalent in the in the lower socioeconomic groups.
So wouldn't that whole argument about protecting the youth mute, given the fact that there's still this growing number
It does,
of youth
it does.
using traditional tobacco?
It does.
So again, we're in this real crazy discussion around things that actually, in my mind, is logical, rational, and yet it's failing on so many.
It does. It doesn't make sense.
So, you're giving some speeches. Where do you think we should be going in this direction, and where do you think the WHO is failing on this? Given the fact that we're now in Geneva and we've got FCTC's COP down the road, where do you think they're failing?
See, the FCTC has already included harm reduction as part of its policy. But unfortunately, we don't see any discussion of harm reduction at any of the COPs.
Because it's an industry ploy.
It's an industry ploy. And that's what, even though they have it in them,
Even
they're
though
saying, yeah.
They've put it in there in
They call it
2003.
industry interference.
Yes.
But
yeah.
isn't all tobacco industry interference? If that was the case, there would be a complete ban on all tobacco all over the world.
Yes.
Because we have 1.6 or 1.7 billion people using tobacco all over the world. Now, that itself gives you a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So when you look at harm reduction, I think the WHO should actually look and get their heads out of the ground and stop being an ostrich and address the problem. And this time they smelled the coffee. Because no matter what you do, and I do understand that harm reduction is a very, very recent development. It wasn't there 15 years ago.
Well, some would argue that with Michael Russell in the 70s and 80s, with his statement saying that it's the tar that kills and not the nicotine, and the development of nicotine replacement therapies was the first step in harm reduction.
It was. And that was a
I
way.
think you're referring to modern innovation.
Yeah, I'm talking about the modern innovation. I mean, I do understand the pastilles, the chewing gums, and the patches, and all of them. They did exist, yes. But if you look at the success ratio,
It's failure.
it's just 7% success. That means out of every 100, you have only 7 people succeeding to give up, while as 93% people continue to use the product, or they switch back.
So I'm a rather skeptic. I just think that the pharmaceutical companies would rather have, and sorry, I might have stepped on some toes here. I think the pharmaceutical companies rather fix the problem after the problem has occurred, rather than addressing the problem as a preventative measure with a cessation product like a gum or a patch.
Right.
And therefore, there was no development or innovation for the last 20 years. So they just ticked the box and said, we've done it. Now, bring me the cancers.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense to me, because when you look at it from, if you just do a simple Cochrane review, you go to any of the journal sites where you can search for articles on medicine and all that, there has been no direct relationship of nicotine with cancer. Nobody's
Never.
been able to prove a direct causation of nicotine causing cancer. Yes, in heart, it can increase your heart. It's like caffeine. It works very similar to caffeine. Of course, the receptors are different, but nicotine works it's like the bigger brother of caffeine, right? It increases your heart rate.
How much bigger?
Maybe about 20-30%.
Okay.
But we don't consume as much nicotine as we do for coffee, right? We can drink
Well,
about 10 or
depends who
15
you
cups, and
ask.
then you get jittery fingers and all that. But yeah, but nicotine is, it's been demonized much more than it should have actually been. It's just been amplified to a large extent. The nicotine
Because of its association with tobacco.
with tobacco. And I see the innovation as something which should have been actually hailed as a scientific breakthrough. People should have been, praising it and say, this is something really great. If I had somebody in my family who was completely addicted to smoking, I would have preferred them to go on to a harm-reduced product like electronic cigarettes, or maybe heat not burn, or even pouches. Now, in the spectrum of THR products, the safest, and that we can see from the Swedish example, is nicotine pouches.
Yes.
It gives you the nicotine, it satisfies your urge, it doesn't cause, and there's been no documented case of cancer, even oral cancers so far. And then the next would be your, either it would be your electronic cigarettes or your heat not burn. So if you look at the spectrum, there is also safety levels in THR.
Yes.
So if there is a product which has the potential,
But they're all significantly lower than
lower.
combustible
yes,
tobacco.
Yes, much lower. There's enough of studies which have shown that the chromatographic gas analysis of a vapor compared to the smoke, the differences are very clear. You don't need a rocket science to go and just Google it and find it out.
Yes.
The vapor is a completely different animal. Smoke is a completely different animal. So there's a much more safety factor of burn. And that's the principle pharma works on. Every new drug that comes in the market has been marketed as a safer product compared to the older one.
Yes.
We, for example, for diabetes, I'll give you an example. We had fenformin. The first treatment for diabetes was fenformin. But then fenformin had some side effects. And then they came up with metformin, which was much more safer. And people have been using metformin. But if the people objected to metformin, we would have to keep using fenformin, which had a much higher safety risk factor.
But the other interesting thing is that, yes, there's clinical trials that have done that. And then there's post-market review of those products after they've released it. But when it comes to THR products, this argument about we don't have the time or we haven't got sufficient evidence in terms of time, but that's contradictory to how we treat every other public health intervention, is that we know enough now to be satisfied that we can release it, but then we put measures in to measure the possible impacts of those products. Every single pharmaceutical that I know goes through post-market reviews continuously.
It's called PMS, post-market surveillance.
Yes.
And that's what they check it for, any long-term side effects, short-term side effects, and those are reported into the system. But unfortunately, the difference between these two is the category they belong to. pharmaceutical products come under pharmaceutical products. It has a complete different regulation and all that. Whereas nicotine, caffeine, theobromine, which comes in chocolate and all of that, they come under consumer products. So it doesn't make any sense to not have a PMS for something like nicotine. You could have it.
But then again, if you look at from a consumer goods, you've got the Food and Drug Administration. So they actually have those
They have some
surveillances
control,
for the food.
they do.
And if we look at, for example, in South Africa, we do have those safety controls where you are able to, release or at least submit a finding whether you are a medical person or if you're a normal consumer.
Right.
And that prompts a process going through. So I think all of this is just bureaucracy and
You say potato, I say potato.
Exactly.
It's just that.
Well,
They're doing it for the chewing gums, the lozenges, and everything else. I mean, it's working over there. You have it over the counter.
yes.
So
And it's a consumer good.
it's a consumer good. So why not
It's
extend
just
the
made by
blanket?
Johnson & Johnson.
Why not just extend the blanket to
Yes.
the side of the story, right?
Absolutely.
That's
Your
your
office out here? You're out here the whole time.
Hi, Mark. I'm going to grab you next time because I'm just interviewing
Oh, good.
Dr.
Okay.
Rohan. Okay. Thanks, Mark. So, Doc, I think thank you very much for giving me the time.
My pleasure, Kurt.
And I hope India turns the corner really soon. And
You might have to look out for a report we are launching very soon. We just did an event in Sri Lanka, and if you just Google it, you'll find a lives saved report where we predicted that if Sri Lanka adopts a THR policy in the next 20, 30 to 50 years, they have a potential to save 85,000 lives.
my word.
And
Yeah.
if you look at it from the Indian context, if they have a THR policy, which I hope they do, and I sincerely urge them to do. I'm not against their policy of banning it for the youth, which I completely agree. I don't think children should get onto addictable products at all. At least make it available to people who are adults who are looking for a harm-reduced product,
Yes.
and gives them, the added years of life that they would have with their families.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Doc.
My pleasure, Kurt.
You have a wonderful day.
As always,
And let's
great pleasure to
keep
meet
on-
you.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.